Ask everyone to please stand, and Commissioner Hudson, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And this is a special meeting of the County Commission to discuss all things JCDA, and so we are going to allow public comment this morning. We're going to begin now, and we will run that through 10 o'clock. When 10 o'clock comes, we're going to get on with the agenda. If there is time at the end of the agenda for anyone who has not had an opportunity to speak, you will be able to speak at the end. So the first person to speak is Lynn Becerra. Becerra.
What is the ultimate purpose of the JCDA? Whom does it serve? Whose interest is it working to advance? The JCDA's own website states, quote, "Local, state, and federal agencies work together to protect Jefferson County's natural resources and environment for the health and safety of our residents and visitors, and to maintain our community as one of the most scenic areas of the Mountain State," unquote. Clearly, this has not happened. Going forward, will the JCDA do its part to protect the environment for the health of residents, or continue to put it at risk? The JCDA website states, Jefferson County, West Virginia offers gorgeous, inspiring natural beauty to residents and visitors alike. Opportunities to enjoy nature's clean air, mountains, woodlands, rivers, and streams, as well as local and national parks, are abundant, unquote. Going forward, will the JCDA protect and take advantage of this valuable resource, or continue to sell it away? The JCDA website states, quote, "Thanks in part to the continual in-migration of residents from the adjacent higher-priced areas of Northern Virginia and Maryland, the Jefferson County community is vibrant and growing," unquote. Going forward, will the JCDA work to ensure growth continues, or deter people and clean businesses from moving here by bringing in toxin-spewing industry? The children of North Jefferson Elementary School can't vote for members of the JCDA. I can't vote for members of the JCDA. All I can do is vote for county commissioners and hope that they do their jobs and represent the citizens. I am not against development, but it needs to be smart, safe, and forward-looking. I recognize that our county should be searching for job creation at every income level, but not to the detriment of our environment and our health. Please make sure the goals of the JCDA and the motivations of its members are ultimately to improve the lives of the residents of Jefferson County, not to increase the profits of polluting foreign companies and their investors.
Your next to speak is Karen Glennon. Oh, you didn't hear me? Karen Glennon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am concerned with the Commission President's seeming romanticism of heavy industry, as I recall her earlier comments about many residents' grandfathers working in industry previously in Jefferson County. I think one needs to know previous history to shape present decisions that impact the future. I am concerned that romanticizing the past is a poor move when it leads to actions that bring polluting futures. I previously read a letter to the Commission that my daughter wrote that I shared with Senator Manchin's staff. She spoke of how many of the people making decisions about Rockwell would not live long enough to see the full ramifications of them. She is right. Ms. Nolan, during the recent interviews for the vacant JCDA positions, you asked an unconstitutional question of the applicants. One of the applicants said it was a chilling question, and you emphatically agreed that it was, and that you intended it to be chilling. You further explained that you were a direct person and were not rude or nasty. You elaborate that you like directness. I do as well. I researched the average lifespan of American women, and according to 2016 data, it is 78.69 years. I recall you saying you are 72. You won't likely be here to see the accumulating toxicity left by Rockwell. Unlike you, I am not interested in chilling anyone, and I mean no rudeness or nastiness when I share this fact. I just deeply care for the health of my children, your children, and everyone's children. I am invested in the future. I share Tim Rawson's vision for our community. I too look forward to a time when people on this side of the room trust people on that side, and where the citizens feel that you all sincerely want to hear what we have to say, and where we feel that we are working together for the betterment of our community. That time is certainly not now. I don't have faith in my government on a state or local level, and I think many of my fellow neighbors feel the same way. The proposition of removing existing JCDA members now, after the pro-Rockwell majority of the membership resigned, gives the impression of intending to stack it with community members who share your support of heavy industrial development. The optics of that are not good, not balanced, and not representative of the majority of the community members and our neighbors in Virginia and Maryland. It does not foster trust and faith in you all.
Thank you. Tim Ross?
Big boy chair. My name's Tim Ross. I live in the county. I'm 63 years old, and one thing my education and experience has taught me that I don't know squat about a lot of things, all right? But I do know some things about problem solving, whether I was a forecaster or deputy chief of communications for the Weather Service, chief of staff of the communications. I learned how to solve problems. And the first thing a wise man told me is when you really got to get something done fast, take your time. Pennsylvania Dutch say, the hurrier I go, the behinder I get, right? Second part is to identify the problem. And that might seem simple, but problems are like icebergs. That little 1/3 that sticks up, that's not really the problem. More than likely, what the problem is way down below. So you have to identify what the problem is. You have to dig deep, okay? And then you have to realize, this is what I know, and this is probably what I don't know, right? So you have to overcome that lack of knowledge. And it's okay to say, hey, I don't know what's going on. So how do you solve it? You go find subject matter experts. You say, I have this problem to solve, I don't understand it, I want to talk to the subject matter experts. When I think in the case of the JCDA, the subject matter experts are not in this room. They are the members of the JCDA that were there. They saw what happened, okay? They probably have a very good idea of what went wrong, what went right, and how it could be fixed. And one of those people that should be in the mix is in the room, Mr. Deal, the executive director, all right? And he should be in the mix as well. And when you're thinking about the fate of the JCDA, I think you should be thinking also about what his role in the past, what he's doing now, and what the plans are for the future. You can't do those things separately. When you're building a team, you have to think about the leader. You have to think about the team members. Now, overall, on subject matter experts, you've talked about an advisory committee, and possibly you. I don't think you're the best for the advisory committee. You're a political board. You're coming at it from a political point of view, which is important, okay? However, you do need subject matter experts. So where are they? The one thing I learned during the interview process was listening to all the people that interview, what a breadth and depth of knowledge that this community has. There's your subject matter experts. The JCDA say, man, we need to talk to an economist. I need to understand economy more. Hey, are there any economists in this county? I bet there are. And you've seen the willingness of people wanting to help. So I think your advisory should be like a standing list. And when you need, hey, we need to know about what's the effects on DNA. Hey, there's a young mom in Harpers Ferry. She's got a master's degree in DNA.
Thank you, sir.
Use your resources.
Diane Blues?
Good morning, everyone. Diane Bluest from Harpers Ferry. I'm here to ask you to vote against any attempt to force early resignations from the current JCDA members. I would also urge you to select a labor rep and a citizen rep from among the people who took the time to meet your already extended deadline for applications. Finish the interviews for those who could not stay until midnight to be interviewed, but respect the process that everyone was working with. If you force resignations of the remaining JCDA members, you will look like fools after all of you, with the exception of Commissioner Lorenzetti, sent a letter of commendation to the entire JCDA just a few short months ago. Are we to infer that you were only supportive of the JCDA members who supported Rockwell and the introduction of heavy industry to Jefferson County, because that's what it looks like? You will leave yourselves open to accusations of unequal treatment of the various boards and commissions you oversee. Are you going to demand attendance reports from all the other boards and commissions or just the JCDA? What kind of government has one standard for one board and one standard for another? And you'll possibly leave yourselves open to the accusations of violating the constitutional rights of the JCDA members to voice their vote, through their vote, their mind and conscience on all issues. If you continue to hold applications open, you will be accused of waiting for applicants that are acceptable to you based on their views on bringing heavy industry to Jefferson County. Many of the people who applied for JCDA positions have broad experience, as Tim just said, in business, development, and policy arenas. To cast them all aside until you get people who will support development that runs counter to the comprehensive plan and counter to what what you're hearing every 2 weeks from your constituents, this time it's every week, will prove what many of us have been saying. You do not listen to your constituents. You are mired in business as usual. You have no vision for dealing with the development in the county, and the governance in Jefferson County is broken. You have had almost 3 months to figure out how to populate the JCDA board and have failed to do so. Don't remove all sitting members of the board. Let them provide continuity in these turbulent times. Finish the interviews and select from among those who took the time to apply within the advertised deadline. If you do decide to remove all members of the board, then I do believe that the JCC member of the board must be removed as well, and a new JCC rep who will be open to diverse points of view should be selected. Thank you.
Where's Josh Compton?
He's on the phone.
Oh, hi, Josh.
How you doing?
Okay, thanks. Okay, so there's something way bigger going on internationally, and Jefferson County is only the tip of the iceberg. The European Union is greening itself in 2 ways. First, it is phasing out fossil fuels by sending its fossil fuel burning factories, like Rockwell, here to vulnerable states with poor regulatory oversight and state policies that discourage private labor unions. Secondly, it's shipping its pollution across the ocean and using landfills in certain states. I know about that happening in South Carolina. The Rockwell plants in Denmark are switching primarily to electric arc. Since Denmark is phasing out fossil fuels overall, the electric will be from renewables. Patsy Noland, is that really okay with you that your Rockwell friends are stopping using fossil fuels in their plant, but planning to burn coal, frack gas, and maybe petroleum coke in their county factory here? The local and state officials who are complicit in secretly pushing through Operation Shuttle, otherwise known as Rockwell, have encouraged exploitation. Now that the secret is out, you need to undo the damage. There is an emerging field of science that is studying the effects of pollution, showing that even small amounts can be detrimental to children. Even if this wasn't so, tell me, Patsy and others who think that this factory is so great, you have grandchildren. Is a little bit of bullying in the schools okay with you? If the answer is no, then Rockwell needs to be stopped. We need a JCA that will not allow exploitation of our citizens, land, water, air, and our precious children.
Thank you. Kurt Compton. Kurt Compton.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to presume to tell you guys how to do your jobs. You're all seasoned veterans, I think. A word of caution, however, with regard to the reconstitution of the JCDA. This, in my view, comes down to philosophy, and I'll be blessedly brief here. If we have a philosophy on the Jefferson County Development Authority that is essentially anti-development, the board has no reason to exist. We will get nowhere. I'd like to see Jefferson County become a place where we can both live and work. Thank you.
Thank you. Paula Levine. Paula Levine.
No. David.
Oh, David, I'm sorry. That could be Paula.
So, Commissioner Compton, are you also watching the video?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I just was wondering, so I'll wave to you. And there's a specific reason I'm really directing my comments to you today. In July 2017, John Reisenweber collected signatures from the JCC, BOE, Ranson, and other parties on a pilot agreement. According to everybody I talked to, it was pitched as a green project. There were glossy brochures that said Paris Accord, LEED certified, blah, blah, blah. Reisenweber purposefully kept Matt Ward, who was the primary economic development consultant to Ranson and Charlestown, out of the loop. He did not sign the NDA, and he actually thought that the plant was a Volvo plant just because he was trying to dig around and there was a Volvo plant in Mississippi. On July 7th, 2017, because of the Sierra Club letter, Matt Ward and Andy Blake read the PSD. And according to Matt, they were horrified. They realized for the first time that it would fundamentally destroy Jefferson County, and they realized that they had been hoodwinked. On September 5th, 2018, I received a text message from Eric Lewis as part of a thread. The time for objections and protests was over a year ago, when we publicized widely and with great fanfare that they were coming. If citizens who are not involved now want to get involved, that's great. I will hand them the keys and wish them luck, and they will quickly see that economic development is harder than they think. We took him up on his offer, and I formed a group that I jokingly called Alt-JCDA, after all the, rogue NASA and all those groups that were resisting Trump. Brought a bunch of people together once a week. Of course, as Tim said, there are many brilliant people in this county, and we came up with a name a little later, Smart Growth Syndicate, and we started doing research, and we found out about opportunity zones. I went up to Greenwich, Connecticut, I went down to Charlottesville, I went to New York, and I found that I discovered about $3 billion in funding that could come into Jefferson County for various projects. And I found that they really liked Jefferson County and that they liked the idea of a transit-oriented development. I also discovered that over 400 people participated in the process that came up with Jefferson Orchards and the Ranson plan. Those 400 people, when they looked at the plan, the reason it was designed that way is they were creating a model that would change the whole bedroom community aspects of Jefferson County. They didn't want more Dan Ryan homes. They came up with a plan that was going to benefit the county long term. I have this quote from October 20th, 2018 from Christine Snyder, the editor of The Spirit. Well, I'm just going to read this quote. Dale Manuel always called for public hearings on anything and everything. You can place blame all over the place, but the voters elected Josh Compton over Dale Manuel. Then I'm just going to go on to a final quote.
No, thank you. Your
where
time
Nick
is
Deal
finished.
said at the end of the month,
Everybody gets the same amount of
understand.
time.
At the end of the month,
Addison Reese is next.
at the end of the month, last month, we were going to have a new JCDA. We
Addison, would you
need
please come on
oversight
up?
over Nick Deal to get
Thank
this
you
county
for
back
your
on track.
comments,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Levine.
A few months ago, when citizens were asking for the JCDA to be disbanded, Commissioner Noland led the JCC in unanimously adopting a resolution to show their support for the JCDA board members. In September, Noland was quoted as saying, "I support and have complete confidence in the Jefferson County Development Authority." Now that same commissioner wants to start fresh because she says that half of those same board members do not back the statutory objective, which says all development authorities in the state have to support all businesses and industry. What changed since September that it would be assumed that the remaining members of the JCDA have a different outlook about business and industry than they did before? Commissioner Noland has expressed concerns about the 30-some citizens who applied for positions on the JCDA. Noland was quoted in The Spirit as saying that the JCC's focus is going to be on people who can be objective and are looking out for the economic well-being of the county. Let's talk about being objective. Commissioner Noland has been clear about her stance on the Rockwell project and those who don't support it. In the same article in which she praised the JCDA, she also said, "In my opinion, the damage that is being done by the very vocal opposition is far greater than any damage that Rockwell could ever create." Can she be objective while sitting on the JCDA? Can she listen to citizens' concerns without being suspicious that they are anti-business and their intentions are not pure? The West Virginia Development Office and the West Virginia Infrastructure Jobs Development Council work in conjunction to approve financing packages for water and sewer projects. Reisenweber was the executive director of the JCDA while also sitting on the IJDC. As he resigned, Nick Deal left his job at the Development Office to take Reisenweber's place. Deal's state agency, the WVDO, signed an MOU with Roxel in September of 2017, 2 months before he started at the JCDA. How can he be objective when questions are raised about the project? The mission of the JCDA is to improve the quality of life in the county by developing and promoting commercial opportunities for new and expanding businesses. The members of the JCDA should be open-minded to any potential economic activity in the county, but they should also be able to use their understanding of the area and the desire of the people who live here in order to determine which types of business and industry are a good fit for the county. This does not mean accepting any business or industry. A Herald Mail article from January talked about how the Eastern Panhandle will be able to deal with too few people for too many jobs. Nick Deal said last Thursday there are loads of manufacturing jobs in Berkeley County. Why wouldn't we pursue other types of industry when we have the same jobs just a few miles away in our state? Maybe we need more people who can look outside of the box when bringing new businesses and make sure they are creating a sustainable future for our county.
Ruth Hatcher. And the next person is Kai Newkirk. So when she's finished, you just come on down. Good morning.
The reason I got involved against Rockwell was because of the children at North Jefferson Elementary School. And I thought to myself, how in the world could anybody possibly put a plant literally across the street from an elementary school? It saddens me deeply. These children cannot be here. But this little bear represents the children in our community. It represents my grandson, who is 7 years old. You should have a meeting at North Jefferson Elementary School, by the way. I think Nick Deal does need oversight, as David has stated, and I believe that he is just an arm of Charleston that wants to pollute us now since they polluted the rest of the state. And I did not like the comments made by Mr. Deal regarding that people opposing Rockwell as being hysterical. I found that very condescending. And I didn't like it when he made a reference to our children can have a learning experience by being exposed to pollutants across the street. That is, I find that highly offensive to the public who's speaking out. And the reason we're speaking out is because we looked at the research that was done by others, and also the EPA toxic release inventory report, and that's why we got upset. We knew what was coming. We were terrified, just like the people that are in Croatia that were terrified of it, people in India that speak out against it, and in France, they're protesting right now, and in Romania. We're not the only ones, and neither are our neighboring states. They understand this. That's why they're also involved. We're not just people out here because we want to see you lovely folks. Trust me, I'd rather be home. So I'm here only because I feel like I have to be here. For your child, for your grandchildren, and your grandchildren too. So it's not just for me, it's for all of us, is why I'm here. I don't enjoy being here, but I will not stop being here. And if you think we're going to stop, you've got another thing coming, because as long as Rockwell's name isn't associated with our community, we are not going to stop. So I just want to make that step. And another thing, Martinsburg has the dubious distinction of being the worst place to live in West Virginia. That's pretty sad. So are you trying to take their place as number one as the worst place in West Virginia to live? Because that's what's going to happen if this plant comes. It will be the worst place in the state of West Virginia. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Kai Newkirk. I'm grateful to be here this morning. I grew up in Jefferson County. I've attended and graduated from different schools, and one of them I'm most proud of is Jefferson Elementary School. And I'm here living back in the county. And as I've heard from afar about what's been happening with the proposed Rockwool development, I've really been outraged to see that this was being pushed forward and was going to put, as someone who spoke before me said, the profits of a multinational corporation before the health of children in our community, before the long-term sustainable and equitable economic development of our community, before the land, the air, the water that is the basis of why so many of us want to be here. And I think the depth of outrage and opposition that you've seen reflects how much this goes against the grain of the needs and the well-being of this community. And I just want to speak to two things briefly. One is that part of what I've heard is that people are outraged in part because this has been a very anti-democratic process that many people feel is corrupt and I think needs to be investigated further. When we look at the hearings, how things have been rolled out and how it's moved forward, this is a very serious concern. And if now, after this most recent election, when the results show a very clear mandate against this project, if now this commission moves forward in a way that entrenches the commitment to push this forward regardless of that opposition, I think that's only going to deepen the sense that this is being pushed through against the will of the majority of people in this county. That's not right, and your job is to be responsive to that. Whether you agreed with it before, that's where the people, that's the message of the people, and I think it needs to be heeded. And the last thing I'll say is that this is a moral question that taps into something that's been a battle in our state for generations about whether corporations can just do what they want to do, regardless of the health of the people, regardless of the impacts on the local community, regardless of whether it really serves the workers and those who live nearby, or not, whether we're going to have a democratic process and an economy that serves us all and that protects our land for future generations. And if this project moves forward and you and others continue to be on the wrong side of that moral question, I believe it's very clear that resistance is only going to grow, and this opposition is only going to intensify. And you're going to be faced more and more with the question of whether to stand up and do what's courageous and right for this community and back up the clear will of the majority, or stand, frankly, in a shameful position of rejecting that and moving something forward that will be viewed very negatively in history. And so I appeal to you and your conscience to stand with the will of the majority and do what's right.
All right, it's 10 o'clock. We're going to move on with the what we have on the agenda this morning. The first topic is to discuss options for reconstituting the JCDA, and I think there are a couple things that we can talk about. I think our Mr. Kennedy is out there.
Yeah, I saw him.
Yeah. So we're at number 10. I'll give you a few minutes to make yourself comfortable there. And so I'm interested in, I put this on the agenda, and to determine what possibilities there might be for reconstituting the JCDA and whether or not some of the things that I've considered or thought about were within legal guidelines and what the authority of the commission is in possibly and the budget impact related to reconstituting the board, or whether we put it on under the authority of the county commission. And and what the effect might, or whether we can create an advisory committee to that, to the JCDA. And so I think those are the things that we need to find out before I believe we can move forward in doing anything different that we're doing right now. I don't know if you have any suggestions or recommendations or comments on that?
Well, I've had a chance to look at these issues and...
Oh, yeah, get the mic in front of you. Yeah.
Just
bring it a little closer.
Yeah, just point it toward you.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you're on.
I've always wanted to do that. I have had a chance to look at a couple of, I guess, issues that, a couple of statutes and the like that are reflective of some of the issues that are raised here. Is this something that you'd feel more comfortable if we spoke about in executive session?
Would you recommend it? I mean, you would?
I would.
Okay, seeking legal advice.
You gotta move the chair.
He is talking into the mic, it's just not, yeah. Well, what the question right at this point is, recommendation is to go into executive session to receive legal advice with regard to restructuring of the Jefferson County Development Authority.
And I just want clarification. You said reconstitute, and then now you've said restructuring, so I'm not sure what either of those words mean and what we're talking about.
Well, that's the question that I have, is what is the authority of the commission to, if we decide to restructure, what is the authority of the commission to restructure? So that's what we need to go, that's what I'm interested in learning for right this minute.
Okay, of the, well, I'll ask, yeah.
Betsy, I think Josh was trying to say something.
Josh, do you have something?
Yeah, just if possible, I mean, could we do most of this outside executive session? I mean, if there are options that are afforded to the JCC.
Listen, you're going to have to be quiet. Please refrain from applauding while we're trying to discuss this. So, because we need to be able to hear, and we can't hear if you're applauding. Thank you. I appreciate your cooperation. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay, so I mean, just from my standpoint, if we're just going to initially discuss options afforded to the JCC as just options, I mean, I don't see why that can't be discussed in the public arena. And then if we get into like the nitty-gritty legal ramifications, then go into executive session. I mean, it's up to legal counsel. I'd like most of this to be outside if possible.
And I'll state I agree with Josh on that.
Well, I guess my only comments to Mr. Compton and Mr. Lorenzetti would be that some of the issues that we will be speaking here actually do impact current litigation, and I believe that we need to explain those fully to the commission members, and anything that we do speak about as it relates to any option for reconstitution, a department, or any type of advisory committee. I have no problem establishing what I believe the state code would enable you to do, and by all means I think those could be discussed once we come out of executive session. But I do believe, based on the current litigation and how it impacts the JCDA, I believe that it would be prudent to speak about these matters first in executive session.
Okay, all right, I'll defer to legal counsel then.
All right. So I'll make a motion that we go into executive session to receive legal advice with regard to potential litigation, with regard to reconstituting or reorganizing, reconstituting, getting legal advice on that from the JCDA.
Second.
No, don't vote for it.
Does he represent JC?
This is not your turn to talk, folks. Okay. So I made the motion. Is there a second? Okay.
I like Josh, I would like as much of this to be in open session as possible. I realize there are lawsuits filed, and that makes especially lawyers nervous speaking in public, but I think at this point in time, the word reconstituting or restructuring is pretty wide open, and I think folks want to know, does that mean getting rid of all the current board members, starting over? Is it a completely different, are we going to make it a department of the county commission?
I think those are things that we can discuss after we hear what our lawyer has to say.
But I agree with Jane, though. I think the issues that we are going to discuss need to be fully discussed in the open before we go into executive session.
Well, I think that we need to receive legal advice before.
I think we've received plenty of legal advice, Patsy.
Well,
I think we
I'm
need
going to call the question. All in favor of the motion to go into...
Patsy, Chris, one thing on my side before we vote.
Okay.
Okay, if we're going to discuss the options, couldn't we just quickly lay out what those options are and not get into detail?
Yeah, well, the options I've talked about were the possibility of creating a department, a JCDA, under the county commission, whether or not that's an option, and to discuss a possible budget impact were we able and decide to do that. The other option is to make, that I thought we would discuss, would be making the county commission an advisory to the commission, an advisory committee to the JCDA, and you know, there may be other options that we're not aware of that might come out as a result of the discussion.
Are we discussing the possibility of removing the existing board as well?
Yes, that will also be on the, yes, well, reconstituting, restructuring, yes. That's also on the list of things, possible things to discuss during executive session.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion to go into executive session, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
The vote is 3-2. The ayes have it, and we're going to an executive session, and we need to remove these microphones, so we're going to have to take those out.